They say death doesn't always come without warning. Sometimes it gives you a countdown. Imagine waking up to find a message carved into your mirror, written in something that looks disturbingly like blood. You have 3 nights left. At first, you laugh it off, some sick joke, a prank. But when the clock strikes midnight, the shadows begin to move. And with each passing night, the warning becomes more real, more terrifying. Tonight, we begin the story of the deadly countdown and what happens when your final night arrives. It started with the mirror. Daniel had just gotten home from another exhausting day at work. He lived alone in a small apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just 4 walls and the quiet hum of loneliness. He liked it that way, no roommates, no distractions, just peace. Or so he thought. That night, he stepped into his bathroom, the fluorescent light buzzing faintly above. He splashed water on his face and then froze. For a moment, he thought his tired eyes were playing tricks on him. But no, there it was, etched into the condensation of the mirror, as if carved by an unseen hand. You have 3 nights left. The words weren't scratched in with a finger like kids sometimes do with fog. No, these letters looked deep, jagged, almost burned into the surface. Daniel leaned closer, running his hand across the glass. The message didn't smudge, didn't wipe away. It was there to stay. His heart thudded, but he tried to laugh it off. Real funny, he muttered to himself, convincing his nerves it had to be some prank. Maybe his buddy Marcus had found a way in, or maybe it was left from some tenant before him. His landlord had never been much for upkeep. Still, the message lingered in his mind. Who wrote it? Why 3 nights? He went to bed uneasy, telling himself it was nothing. But at midnight, just as the digital clock by his bed flickered to 12 o'clock, something woke him. At first, it was just a sound, soft, like breathing. Not his own. Daniel lay still, holding his breath. The noise came from the corner of the room, low and steady, as if someone or something was standing in the darkness, watching. He sat up quickly, fumbling for the lamp, and the light filled the room. Nothing. Just shadows thrown against the walls, motionless. Get it together, Dan, he whispered. It's just your imagination. But the air felt wrong. Heavy. The kind of heavy that presses against your skin and makes the hair on your arms stand up. And then he saw it out of the corner of his eye. A shape. Just a blur moving in the mirror across the room. When he turned, there was nothing. But when he looked back into the mirror, the shadow was there again, standing right behind him. Daniel spun around, heart hammering, but his bedroom was empty. The silence that followed was almost worse than the sound. The rest of the night was torture. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind felt alive, as though the apartment itself was breathing. He stayed awake until the sun bled through the blinds, exhausted and shaken. The next morning, he told himself he was being ridiculous. No more horror movies before bed, no more overthinking. He would go to work, come home, and forget all about it. But when he walked back into the bathroom that evening, the message on the mirror had changed. You have 2 nights left. Daniel didn't go to work the next day. He couldn't. He barely slept, and when he finally drifted off near dawn, nightmares clawed at him, dark corridors, whispers in his ear, and something cold brushing against his skin. He woke up drenched in sweat, his heart racing, his mind screaming the same words that glared back at him from the bathroom mirror. You have 2 nights left. He stared at the message for what felt like hours. The jagged letters hadn't faded. They looked deeper now, almost as though they'd been carved into the glass with something sharp. He ran his fingertip over the grooves and flinched. They were real. Daniel grabbed his phone and called Marcus. If anyone would know what to do, it was his best friend. Hey man, I need you to come over, Daniel said, his voice shaking. Something's wrong. Marcus arrived within the hour, carrying a 6-pack and his usual smirk. You sound like you're about to tell me your apartment's haunted, he joked. Daniel didn't laugh. He led Marcus to the bathroom and pointed at the mirror. Marcus frowned. That's weird, he admitted, but it's probably some old vandalism. Maybe acid etching or something. Doesn't mean ghosts. Daniel wanted to believe that, but his gut told him otherwise. It changed Marcus. Yesterday it said 3 nights. Now it says 2. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Changed? On its own, as if on cue, the lights flickered. A sharp pop echoed through the apartment, and the bathroom bulb went dark. Both men froze. For a moment, the silence was unbearable. Then, from somewhere deep in the apartment, a door slammed shut. Marcus chuckled nervously. Okay, that's creepy. But old buildings do stuff like that all the time. But when they stepped into the hallway, they saw it. A shadow, tall and thin, gliding across the wall. It moved with intent, not like a trick of the light. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Marcus swore under his breath. Tell me you saw that, Daniel whispered. I did. They followed the shadow into the living room, but nothing was there. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock. Still, the atmosphere was thick with something unnatural, a presence that didn't belong. Marcus, trying to lighten the mood, said, Maybe you just need a priest, man. Or a vacation. But his voice cracked on the word vacation. That night, Marcus stayed over, insisting he wouldn't leave Daniel alone in a haunted death trap. They played video games, drank a couple beers, and pretended everything was normal. But as midnight crept closer, Daniel couldn't shake the dread building inside him. At exactly 12 o'clock, the apartment changed. The air turned icy, their breath visible in the glow of the TV. The shadows on the wall stretched unnaturally, bending and twisting in ways the furniture didn't allow. And then came the whisper. It wasn't faint this time. It was loud, clear. Both men heard it. 2. The voice was low, guttural, echoing from nowhere and everywhere all at once. The word clung to the walls, seeping into their bones. Marcus jumped up, pale as a sheet. What the hell was that? Daniel could barely breathe. He pointed to the bathroom. The door had creaked open on its own. From inside, the mirror seemed to shimmer with faint light. They inched toward it, trembling. The message had changed again. You have 1 night left, Marcus swore and backed away. Nope, I'm out. This is some ring-level nightmare. Burn the place down, Dan. Move. I don't care. Just get out. But Daniel couldn't move. Something kept him rooted to the spot, his eyes locked on the words. It wasn't just a threat anymore. It was a promise. The next day was unbearable. Daniel couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't think of anything except the words carved into his mirror. You have 1 night left. Marcus begged him to leave the apartment. Crash at my place, man. Don't spend another night here. But Daniel felt trapped. It wasn't just his home anymore. It was as if the message was following him, binding him. Wherever he went, he knew the countdown would find him. He had to face it. By nightfall, Marcus reluctantly left, promising to call every hour. Daniel sat alone in the living room, every light on, every shadow watched. Midnight crept closer, each second dragging like a lifetime. His phone buzzed Marcus checking in. Daniel ignored it. His eyes were locked on the bathroom door. At 11:59, the air grew heavy, pressing down like invisible hands. The walls groaned, the lights flickered, and Daniel heard it again. The breathing, slow, steady, not his own. Then the clock struck 12 o'clock. The apartment plunged into darkness. Daniel scrambled for a flashlight, but it wouldn't turn on. His phone died in his hand. The only glow came from the bathroom. The mirror was alive, pulsing with light. And in it, Daniel saw himself, but not quite. His reflection was twisted, gaunt, with black eyes and a smile that stretched too wide. The reflection raised a hand and traced words across the glass. Daniel stepped closer, shaking. The letters formed slowly, burning themselves into the mirror. "Time's up." A deafening roar filled the apartment, shaking the walls. Shadows poured from the corners, stretching across the floor, wrapping around Daniel's ankles like chains. He screamed, clawing at them, but they dragged him toward the bathroom. His reflection smiled wider, mouthing words he couldn't hear. The last thing Daniel saw before being pulled into the mirror was his reflection reaching out, grabbing his wrist, with a strength that was all too real. Then silence. The next morning, Marcus came by after Daniel stopped answering his calls. The door was locked from the inside. He broke it down and stepped into the eerily quiet apartment. Everything looked normal, except for the bathroom. On the mirror, a new message was etched. "You have 3 nights left." But this time, it wasn't for Daniel. It was waiting for the next victim.